Eat some delicious rotten food and mourn our beloved Tien Chen. This episode of From has me more frustrated than Donna when she talks to Boyd. Episode 302, titled When We Go, adds even more new questions, but also some interesting clues. For those of you new to these videos, this is a deep dive into the episode with fun new theories and pitiful answers to all your burning questions. As always, I encourage you to leave your own thoughts and theories in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe so you're notified as soon as one of my From videos drops. Now let's get into it. The majority of episode 2 centers around the aftermath of Tien Chen's death. Boyd has miraculously survived with the monsters sparing him, but why would the monsters let him live? It's important to note that Boyd isn't the first person the monsters have spared. In season 2, we met this woman with a rod through her head. The monsters made her watch as they killed her boyfriend, yet let her live. I gotta believe there's more to this than these monsters just being some sick, sadistic freaks, and I think it has something to do with what the entity, posing as Boyd's dead wife, said at the end of season 2.
Because hope is what makes you willing to suffer. It's not your fear that feeds the forest boy. It's hope.
Essentially what she's saying here is that hope creates suffering, and this suffering is what feeds the forest. Therefore, hope fuels the evil that is this forest. I want to focus on this word feed. It's a word that's used multiple times in season 2. Boyd says of Martin, the chained man he found locked up in the dungeon,
"Whatever these things are, they had been feeding on him for years."
3 episodes later, Sarah elaborates on Boyd's theory, stating,
Boyd said it was like this place feeds on our pain. But what if it does more than that?
So I definitely think these monsters are used to create certain emotions or feelings, whether it be fear, hope, pain, etc., and this fuels whatever nefarious entity has its grip over the town. Now, if the town can learn to harness this, maybe they'll stand a chance at taking on these monsters. I also want to go back to this line of feeding off hope, because we'll hear Victor's father Henry recite a dream his wife said about people lost in a nightmarish town.
They were holding on to hope, and when that hope was gone, they held on to each other.
I can't help but think there's some sort of connection here. When Boyd is cuffed, we hear him repeating Tien Chen's final words, which Kenny translates to, "Take care of him, he'll be alone now." I'm not exactly sure why she wouldn't have said these words in English, since it was directed at Boyd. Maybe she reverted to her native language as her body was being ripped apart. Regardless, this theme of sticking together and not being alone is quite prevalent. We'll see Julie get pissed at her dad when she left him to search for their mother. After losing a tooth, Ellis takes Fatima to see Christy, but is greeted instead by Marielle. And honestly, I can see Ellis's apprehension having her check on his pregnant wife, even though she's a pediatric nurse. She's not only had a difficult time recovering from her drug addiction, but she was also one of 3 townsfolk overtaken by the cicadas and put into a coma-like state. I'm kind of disappointed this hasn't been followed up on. We really don't know what, if anything, these guys saw, who caused it and why, and how Boyd smashing the music box released them from their trance. Julie also wonders if this will have any lasting effects on her mental health. Will she start hearing voices like Sarah did, or worse, have these voices convince her to do something evil? Fatima gets the all clear from Marielle, stating that her baby is okay and that she's merely suffering from a lack of food and nutrition. But I'm like, this girl lost a friggin' tooth. It seems a bit more serious to me. But the most WTF moment in Fatima's story this episode happens over at Colony House. Nikki, that bitch who chewed Fatima out last episode for taking too much time in the washroom, has amassed all the spoiled crops. And after Nikki apologizes, Fatima has all those delicious crops to herself. Something about them compels her to eat. Remember that she hasn't been able to eat anything for days. I highly doubt this binge is a result of her being famished. I mean, how can she suddenly down all this food and it be rotten, no less? My best guess is this has something to do with Marielle. In her scene with Fatima, she tells her that she's going to get her something to help with her stomach. And when Ellis and Fatima arrive back at Colony House, Ellis mentions a quote, magical elixir, which we can briefly see here. What exactly did Marielle put in there? Is she even aware of what she put in there? Remember, she's one of 3 townsfolk who were taken control of. Perhaps she, Julie, and Randall either knowingly or unknowingly are being puppeteered by the evil entity to sow discord amongst the townspeople. Randall already tried to steal a goat last episode, and who knows what Julie really has planned when she tells her father she's going to check up on the animals at the end of the episode. Whatever's happened to Fatima, it looks as though it's allowed her to eat these rotten crops, and I'm curious to see what the aftermath of this will be. From spoiled crops to magical crops, Jim and Kenny happen to stumble upon a life-saving field of various crops. I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed in this. For several episodes, the big problem our townies have had to face was this impending food shortage, and suddenly the problem is magically solved. Unless we start getting some sort of answers, this is very much a Deus Ex Machina type situation, which you never really want to have in writing. These crops also beg a lot of questions. How did they get here? Surely these vegetables need to be tended and maintained. Is a benevolent entity guiding them to this food? Remember that Jim and Kenny followed Boyd's directions, yet still ended up in a completely new area. And will these vegetables be able to grow on their soil, or will they need to populate a smaller town just so they can maintain these crops? In the cave drawings Victor and Tabitha saw at the end of season 1, we do see a group of red stick figures around a field of crops. Could this be depicting the food shortage or perhaps the discovery of new crops? Let's also talk about Tabitha and Victor's dad, Henry. Most of their storyline this episode centers around Tabitha proving to Henry that she is who she says she is. I also thought it was very interesting to see an ad on this article for a company called Rendezvous. The calendar in Donna's room is a Rendezvous calendar, and in Boyd's flashback, his trailer is none other than Rendezvous. And if you go to the Rendezvous website, this is what you see. Moving on. It's only when Tabitha mentions saving children in a locked tower that Henry believes her. That's because his wife Miranda, who we saw briefly in season 2, often spoke of these children before being transported to Fromtown with her 2 kids, Victor and Eloise. Miranda joins other characters like Sarah who hear voices, and these voices began after she took acid. It's the basement that holds the bulk of Miranda's visions in the form of her paintings, and there's a few I want to point out. Here's a faraway tree and blood coming from the mouths of the Ankui children. More children, the same ones Tabitha saw holding hands. Here is that Civil War soldier Jade saw all the way back in season 1. Some paintings of pilgrims and 2 paintings of the talisman, one held by a monster. The motel sign, the diner, and who is this man in a yellow jacket? This arch here also looks a bit similar to the stone arches seen in the dungeon Boyd visited. This is one of the more interesting drawings, that of the church with either light or some sort of explosion emanating from it. Tabitha also recognizes the boy in white. If we're to believe Miranda's story, the one which Henry recites to us, the people of Fromtown are living inside a nightmare they can't escape. But one of the more interesting bits of information we get is that Miranda wasn't the first one to be given the task of saving the children. Who knows how many people before Miranda had the same one, but it points at something I've thought about for some time, that there is some sort of endless cycle that repeats over and over again. I think the years etched on the side of the lighthouse in Tabitha's dream could be the beginning or end of such a cycle. This would explain why the monsters wear old-timey clothes. They are the remnants of the last cycle who failed, which is why you'll see them wear clothes anywhere from the year 1883 to 1978. To our knowledge, there is only one character who's made the leap from one cycle to the other, and that's Victor. Martin might have also been one, but we can't be 100% sure. But the question still remains, if Tabitha didn't save the children, how was she able to get home? After grieving the loss of his mother, Kenny brings a shit ton of alcohol outside the monster cave with the intention of burning the monsters within. Boyd mentions that the monsters may have gone somewhere else or traveled deeper into the cave. At the end of the episode, Boyd enlists the help of his son with the intention of capturing one of these monsters to get more information on who or what they are. Whether Kenny knows this is Boyd's plan is yet to be seen. Kenny also experiences the jukebox magically play Celebration after he finds out about his mother's death. The last time we saw the jukebox suddenly come on was at the end of season 1 with the arrival of the bus and the new townspeople. Whoever controls this is taunting Kenny. Then there's another bit of electronic manipulation. Jim receives a phone call from his dead son Thomas, who died as a baby. But this Thomas is much older. The phone has extra significance for Jim and Tabitha, as it was a phone call which distracted them from looking after Thomas before he fell off the change table and died. We can actually hear a phone ringing when Tabitha goes up the lighthouse stairs. Most likely this is the entity taunting Jim, just like it does to Kenny. I highly doubt Thomas is somehow alive, but knowing this show, anything is possible. The last thing I want to mention is, where did Victor go? We see him packing a bag with his drawings and making a run for it. Could he be going to the abandoned car field, the cellar where he hid as a child, or perhaps to one of the many faraway trees he's discovered throughout the years? I still think Victor is one of the biggest keys to unraveling all of this show's secrets. Now we get into our trailer sleuthing section, where I'll be going over some of the clips we haven't seen yet and how it fits into the rest of the season. Jade uncovers this dude who looks like he's from the 17th or 18th century, drinking out of a skull. He's got one eye, just like the Civil War soldier. This could mean that in every cycle there's a dude who loses his eye for one reason or another. This guy will attack Jade. Here's Fatima, and is that a pile of spoiled vegetables? If so, she just might be in for a feast. This looks to be Victor and a map of 2 connected faraway trees. Just where is he going? Tabitha continues her chat with Henry, and we see this bottle tree. Maybe this was done by Miranda. Here we have Nancy, and it looks like she's been either stabbed or has some wound on her stomach. Notice Jade in what could be a red stone or rock. We saw a field of stones way back in season 1, and it was a large stone crushing a man that Jade saw in the cellar. I wonder if there's any connection. I mentioned this last week too, but this looks to be a new character making it to Fromtown from the city of Camden, where Tabitha currently is. Now that's it for this video. I want to hear your thoughts and theories on this crazy show. Do leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.